Welcome to the Simply Authentic podcast, where we hope to embolden you with discipline, personal growth, and abundance to live your most authentic life. Hi, welcome back to the Simply Authentic podcast. I'm Tanya Murfin.
And I'm Angie Mullings. And Tanya and I have been business owners and leaders for many years, and that didn't just happen without a process.
Right.
We have to have a process in order to achieve that optimum performance level. So we have compared notes and broke this down for you to hopefully make it very simple. We feel the process contains really 4 areas of focus, and we're going to be covering each of those in a series, starting with this particular podcast. So the first key area of focus that we're going to talk about today is really that customer experience and how vital it is, no matter what business you are in. John Maxwell says you are in the people business. So we need to get really good at providing what our customers need. And you know, Tanya, I feel like a lot of people say they're good at customer service.
Agreed.
And I'm not sure that how they measure that.
Yeah. Well, and we'll tell some stats here in a little bit that really pointed out how many people are really unsatisfied with their experience, no matter what that is. I think customer satisfaction also is measured with us individually, all of us individually, with a good and a bad experience and a recent one. So those go away and things are just kind of a normal measure, right? And then you have a really good experience and you want to tell people about it. And now you're comparing other things to that recent experience.
Right.
Or the other way, if you've had a bad experience, now you're really judgy about whatever is going on or what you're buying or whatever to compare that to.
Yeah. So what you're saying is it really depends. It's so individual because it depends on how I have been treated in the past and what my expectation is.
Yep.
So let's tell our listeners, let's each give an example of what we feel in our perspective was a bad experience.
Okay.
And then we'll talk about some good experiences because we never want to tell the bad without the good. Right?
No, we don't.
No.
So do you want me to go first?
Go ahead.
Okay. So I'm going to try to keep this really short because I tend to get wordy when I tell a story, Angie. So I had a bad insurance experience recently.
Okay.
And it's kind of went on now for, let's say, 3 months. Okay. So it wasn't like one thing happened. It was multiple things happened. And to summarize, I found out through a policy that I got in the mail or a policy update that one of my houses was not covered like I thought it was.
Okay.
So that instigates a phone call, and I call and I'm talking to the office manager. So your perception about your satisfaction is that you're dealing with somebody that knows what they're doing.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And I think that's important to say at this juncture. So she helps me, and this took multiple phone calls back and forth because I let her know what I thought was wrong with the policy. She had to call somebody. Anyway, she calls me back and says, actually, that is not the policy that we wrote for you, what you thought you had. So the policy that had been in place for almost a year now was not at all the policy that I thought I should have had, or what I was told I had, rather. And it was actually on the wrong house. They were saying that I lived in my rental house, that it was my primary residence. Okay, so 2 major errors on one policy.
Right.
And I have multiple policies with them, so I can understand how this could get confusing for someone. But I don't have 50 houses. I have a couple of houses.
Right.
So it's not like, they've got to like run through the Rolodex of houses.
Sure.
Okay. So that was the first problem. So I communicate with this person multiple times over multiple days. It even went into a couple of weeks. Finally, I never get a call back. I never get a follow-up correspondence. So I have to call back in, and I ask for her, and I'm told that she is no longer working there, and that my file has been dumped initially on someone else's desk. They didn't communicate that with me, and so at that time I said, I want to come in and review all of my policies with you.
For sure.
So I go in, and I'm unhappy. And this gentleman tries to make me feel happy. He's very pleasant. And so he goes through all of my policies. There were other errors. And when I started asking about the error in the first policy that the woman had been handling, he finally admits to me, she left and left this on my desk, and I just hadn't gotten around to dealing with it yet. And so that alone is a big, huge red flag to me. Not to mention all the other red flags that have happened.
Right.
So we continue this, and he says, I'll get back to you on that policy. He didn't have any answers for me. They still had not resolved that policy for me. The house was insured, which was what I had to make sure of.
Yeah.
But they still hadn't resolved the errors in that policy and trying to straighten it out. I left there not feeling confident, and it took several more attempts on my behalf to get a hold of them to find out where this policy was. I didn't end up getting a refund on this policy for 2 months because I had left a check that day and to pay for it because I wanted to make sure I was insured. Anyway, it was wrong, whatever I had paid for, and they ended up, my policy ended up being much cheaper than what she had quoted me and what I'd actually been issued. So I waited 2 more months on that check to come. There were other little things that happened in there, but one of the primary things that I need to mention at the end of my poor experience was that the same day I got this refund after 2 months of monkeying with this, and it actually may have been 3. This all happened in September, October, and I didn't get it until the end of December, 1st of January.
Okay.
And I get this check. Well, I also got another check for full reimbursement of my actual homeowner's policy, the one I live in. So, and it's 8:00 at night when I open this up. So I'm looking at this, and you always get another piece of mail to explain what's happened.
Sure.
And the check's in a separate. So I had multiple envelopes here to open. So I'm opening, and I see that my homeowner's insurance has been canceled. And the next piece of mail I opened in that order was from my mortgagee or mortgagor.
Yes. Why has your insurance been
That
canceled?
my insurance has been canceled and they're forced placing insurance on me.
Yeah.
So everything is straightened out now. But I tell you all of that to say I have less than zero confidence in this company.
Yes.
And I will pursue switching agents because the errors that have been made over and over and over have had zero to do with me and my ability to explain my homes to them.
Right.
But all on their behalf of just errors, human errors. And I have a huge amount of leeway for human error because you and I are in a business that there are errors made every day.
Right.
And we have agents make errors that then sometimes we've got to go clean that up. And it all has to happen in a diplomatic manner.
Right.
But that experience has left me really soured on this company. And I think it all wasn't necessary. I don't know how that gets so messed up.
Right. You know, I don't know in your case, if anybody could admit wrongdoing or maybe they should have. The person who apparently made the mistake, at least, they had a scapegoat, which is what most people want to do.
Yes.
They want to find a scapegoat.
Yes.
So they had one supposedly that had left. It was all her fault. So they really weren't taking responsibility. To me, and as a broker, we're always going to admit when we did something wrong, and we're going to fix it.
Yeah.
Because that is service in and
Yes.
of itself, is making sure that your customer understands, yes, there is human error, and I
Yes.
too have a wide, I can accept that because I know we make mistakes. We're
Yes.
human.
Yes.
But we're going to admit that we made a mistake.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to hear from others who have made a
Exactly.
mistake.
And in our business, we have paperwork to support the problem.
Right.
So we can tell who made the mistake
Sure.
generally.
Sure.
And it can be done with a contract in front of us that there was a box missed or
Mm-hmm.
something was filled out improperly, or in an email correspondence back and forth that somebody understood it this way and actually it reads this way.
Right.
So you and I in our job can usually get to the bottom of whose fault it is.
Mm-hmm.
And many times that doesn't matter, Angie, because you and I are trying to save the customer experience. We don't want to lose a client.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
whether it was your agent's fault or my agent's fault, if we're in this together to get to closing,
Right.
we're going to say, okay, we have a problem. How can we troubleshoot that? How can
Right.
we figure that out? Yes, it's nice when somebody can take the blame and say, that was my agent's error and we filled that out wrong, but here's where the buyer is. So to stay in this, here's what we're going to have from you.
Right.
And we either work it out or we don't.
Right.
And it all comes back at the end, at closing, to what kind of experience did they have?
Right.
And we're responsible for that, or our
Right.
agents are responsible for that.
Right. Right.
So tell me about a bad experience of yours.
Well, mine has to do with buying a car. And a tip for all you car dealers out there, I believe that you should, if you perfected selling to a single woman, you would make tons of money because we would refer you over and over and over again. I don't know that I've experienced a dealership where they really cater and understand when a single woman is buying a car.
No.
But
Agree.
this particular situation I just recently had to do with buying out a lease. I'd never leased a vehicle before. A lot of my friends lease vehicles, and so I thought I would try it. So my lease was ending, and I will say that my experience with the leasing company was tremendous. They were very communicative. They told me what I needed to do. I thought I could just call up the leasing company and say, I want to buy it out, and they would help me finance it. But that's not the way it works. They're only a leasing company, so they couldn't handle the purchase part of that. They said, you're going to have to call your dealership. And I flat out said, well, that sucks, because my dealership sucks. There's no way to sugarcoat this, because they are not, when you call them, their finance department, you cannot get through to them. It says, hold on the line, and do you have an extension? If you don't have an extension, it says, sorry, I don't even remember exactly what the message says, but essentially, you
Sorry,
can't get,
sucker.
Yeah, that's what it should say. Thank you so much for your business. But I literally, when I needed to call them for anything during the 3-year leasing period of my car, I needed to get a copy of, when I went to license the car, I needed to get something from them to go renew my license. And the paid tax bill, because the paid tax bill doesn't come to you when
Okay.
you're leasing.
Makes sense.
So I had to call and ask for somebody in sales, because the salespeople answer the phone,
Yes, they do.
and in order to get to a finance person. So when I went to try to finance the vehicle, again, called sales, got somebody to talk to me. He got on the line with me, and I thought, oh, well, he sounds pleasant. He'll probably take care of me. No. He said, I'll send you an email, and you can fill out an online application, and then we'll take it from there. I said, fantastic. So I opened the email, and I click on the link, and I fill out a little bit of my information. It won't let me go any further because they've got something wrong on their end. Like, I think my zip code and something else was wrong on the other end. So I email him, and I said, sorry, I can't go any further with this application because something is wrong. It's telling me there's an error. Didn't hear anything. 3 or 4 days go by, still didn't hear anything. And I'm getting close to the end I've got about a month left, and I need to get this taken care of. So I'm going to go back in. I'm just going to try the link again. Well, sure enough, they changed my zip code, didn't tell me that I needed to try again. No email correspondence or anything saying, we fixed the problem, you can try again. No, I don't know what would have happened if I hadn't just arbitrarily gone back in and tried to do it again.
Right.
So I fill out the application, crickets, nothing, don't hear anything. But then the calls from the sales guys start coming. We hear you want to buy a new car. We hear you want to, get a hold of us. No, I don't want to buy a new car. I want to buy the car I have. And no one from finance is calling me back. No, not
Goodness.
responding to emails. I called and left messages. Finally, I went to a very nice credit union in Springfield and got a car loan to pay, and it was done in like 3 days. And check sent, payoff. And I don't know, I'm not a car dealer. Maybe they don't make any money when you buy out a lease. I don't know.
Yeah,
So maybe
I don't know
was.
either.
But here's the thing: I'll buy a car again, and it will never be from
there.
that
Yeah.
dealership ever again.
No, it just takes one bad experience
Yeah.
to put a really sour taste in your mouth. And so, do you think we are, as a society, we're more inclined to tell about a bad experience or about a good experience?
We're more inclined to talk about a bad
We are.
experience.
We
We
are.
really are.
Yeah.
And that's when you talk about customer loyalty and building clientele, it takes one bad apple, one bad experience to really ruin you. And in our business, it's all about repeat and referral business.
It is, all of it.
And that's why we're really taking care of the client, because we don't want to have to start over every time with new clients and
Heavens, no.
and try to build a book of business. So
Yeah.
all right, we got the bad out of the way.
I need a glass of wine.
Me too. Me too.
Okay,
That's-
the bad's out of the way.
Bad's out of the way. We're going good now. Now we'll give an example of some good experiences
Yes.
we've had.
So mine's kind of short and sweet, and this literally just happened in the last 2 or 3 days. So it is very fresh. And I don't have the company name. I would give it, but it's a new company that I haven't used before, and it's not just Fred's Tree Service. So,
Okay.
so I'll have to look it up, which is sad, but I can't remember what it is. But anyway, I hired a tree service to take a tree down at a house that I own. And it's a big tree, and this company was cutting a tree down in our parking lot at work a few months back. Never heard of them before. Apparently they've been around for 30 years.
Okay.
So I took a picture of it and called and said, hey, do you give free bids? And they said yes. And they went out and gave me a free bid. It was very economical for this giant
Wow.
tree that I thought I was going to pay thousands of dollars to
Yeah.
come down. And they said, we can get to it in a few weeks. I said, actually, let's wait until after the first of the year. I don't want it on this year's taxes. I want it on next year's taxes. So they did exactly what they said they would do. We'll contact you in January. So they called me on Monday of this week. They said, we have an opening tomorrow. Could we come out and cut your tree down? And I had to reach out to the renter and make sure it was okay with him. And it was. And I said, sure. So they worked me in. They called me at the end of that first day and said, we're not quite done. And this was the office lady calling me.
Okay.
We're not quite finished. They'll be back tomorrow. Is that okay? Are we going to disturb your renter? Can you let us know if that's going to be okay? And actually, my renter had already left town, so I was able to just say, yes, that's fine. The second night, I got a call from the tree guy, and he said, we're finishing up, but I got to come back tomorrow morning and do just a little bit of cleanup. Is that okay? Like, I was getting contacted at the end of each day of where they were, and I hadn't went over there yet to talk to anybody, so they didn't ever see me. But it was as if somebody on site had my phone number, knew who they were working for. The office lady knew exactly what was going on. And then she called me last night and said, we're all finished. I'll email you the bill. We want to make sure you're satisfied. If you can drive by in the next, because she knows I don't live there, in the next day or so and make sure we left it clean and to your satisfaction, that'd be great. And then leave us a Google review. And I just went ahead and told her, you have communicated more than anyone I've dealt with recently. And I feel very well taken care of. And then she kind of went into their history, how long they've been in business, and that they do a lot of large companies, rental companies here in town, leasing companies.
Yeah.
And the different things they'll do. And she said, we love realtors, so we'd love for you to refer us. And I said, you'll get my next referral. So it's amazing what a good experience, how it makes you feel.
Absolutely. And communication is what that boiled down to.
Oh, my
And we're going to
gosh.
talk about the best tools.
Huge.
It's amazing what some communication will
Yes.
be. I don't know what your expectation was. I don't know if you expected them to be done in one day, but whether you did or you didn't, they were following up with you
Agreed.
every step of the way and communicating
Yeah.
where they were.
Yeah.
And that's essential in that customer experience. I'll need their name, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah.
You got it.
Yeah.
I'll look it up.
Okay.
So what is your good
Well,
experience?
I have a couple because I want to impress upon our listeners that it starts the very minute you either walk in a door or make a phone call.
Yes.
And if you don't have the right person sitting at the front desk, or you don't have the right person who you can hear is smiling
Yes.
over the phone,
Yes.
then you've got a problem to
Yes.
start with. So I don't know if you know this about me, but I'm a professional shopper.
What?
Yes.
New news. Breaking news.
Breaking news. And so just really quick, a couple of examples of how people make me feel, how I felt when I walked into these establishments. One is in Old Colorado City, Colorado. And one of my favorite things to do when I travel is to find these cute little unique shops. I love to shop local whenever I go somewhere.
Right.
And so we were just walking down the street, and there's this place called Sweetwater. Cute, quaint window boxes, and you can tell from the look of it, it's well maintained, it's taken care of. And apparently it was, the owner is an insurance agent, but her mother had a flower shop there, and then her mother passed away, and so rather than just to keep the flower shop, she made it a gift store and a flower shop.
Oh, okay.
So you walk in, there's ambiance, there's some light music. Everyone working there is wearing an apron. You know how some places you go in and you're not sure who's working there and who's not?
No
You
name
wanna-
tag.
Yeah,
Unless they say
exactly.
something to you, you don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they're wearing aprons, so they're easy to spot.
I like that.
I start to work my way back through the store, and I'm with a couple of friends, and she sees us looking at something, not being pushy. She's not standing over my shoulder looking to see, what it is I'm looking at. She could tell by the way we were standing there, kind of, oh, what's that? She came over and she was so knowledgeable. She explained everything about that particular thing. And we were like, oh, that's interesting. And she didn't push us to buy anything. She was just knowledgeable.
Right.
You could tell she had been trained to explain about the products in their store
Yeah.
and then let people go.
Yeah.
So then we meander to the back. Same thing happens at the back. We're towards the back, and I pick up something, and she said, oh, did you see that you can do this with that? And
Yeah.
I hadn't even thought about that I could take the top off and I
Right.
could do whatever with it. So just having somebody there again, it was all about that experience. And when I left that store, I immediately followed them on Facebook, on all their socials. When I went back to Colorado again to visit my friend there, I was with different friends, and I said, we have to take them to Sweetwater. And so it was just.
So you're a repeat customer.
Exactly. And the same goes here with Brown Derby Wine Center. I feel the same. You walk in, there's soft music playing. I love jazz, so there's this jazz pie, and you can't be in there very long. A couple of minutes before somebody comes up and says, "Are you finding everything okay?"
Agree. Yeah.
And they've got people on site that know the wines, that know the beers. And then of course you've got Tim in the Derby Deli, and can't say enough about Tim. We've mentioned him before,
Right.
But that's the point I want to drive home is it starts the minute that door opens
Yes.
or
Yeah.
that phone call goes through.
How you feel, how you're greeted, the reception of you being there, that
Right.
sort of thing.
Right.
Yeah, agree.
Right. Yeah.
So one word I want to ask here and ask your opinion on it, because we've given our good and our bad stories. I wonder how many institutions and companies and corporations teach empathy in their training because I was recently on a phone call with my mortgagor, and the lady on the other end, there's a check that my bank sent out that couldn't be found, and it was a fairly large check. So of course I'm a little worried.
Yeah.
And I have already been told to wait a number of days by my bank for it to get there. And anyway, this person on the other end was not trained in empathy. And she lives, Lord knows where, in the United States, and was almost very, she was very almost mocking that I was worried about this. And like to the point of hateful. Like she was very hateful about it. And I felt a little disparaged by her. And in those moments, you want to say, can I talk to your boss? But again, this is not something, the check is out there somewhere. Right? And if it's not, I can always cancel the check. So it's not going to, I can't do anything about that, and neither can she. But she had zero empathy. So do we train for empathy?
I don't think you can. I really don't think that you can.
You just have to possess it?
I remember, yes. And I remember when I remember hearing a speech by Sam Walton, maybe not a speech, but it seems like he was accepting an award he was being interviewed for some reason. And he said, they asked why, this was back in the early days, how do you get your people to be so friendly? And he said, I can't teach them that. Their mama taught them that.
Yeah.
And you either have it, I think, or you don't. And the unfortunate thing in today's hiring environment, sometimes we make hiring mistakes because for different positions, because we just need to put butts in the seats. We just need to put somebody at that front desk. We sacrifice because we can't get that right person on the phone. And unfortunately it hurts. I believe it hurts our bottom line, but I don't know. It's a challenge everywhere you go to find the right people and get the right person doing the right job. So I don't believe it can be taught. I think you can do some training. You can help them to see how they might reword themselves, how they might approach different things. You may have to give them scripts or something.
I was going to say reactions to objections.
Yes. Yeah. So, but I don't know. I think you either understand empathy or you don't really.
Agree.
And you can be trained to do a lot of things and to have some maybe better listening skills and some more problem solving skills based on scripts and that kind of thing. But I'm not sure that you can really teach empathy.
Agree.
So I know, we want to give our listeners some, I know you've got some statistics here we really want to throw out at you in terms of how it can help your bottom line there.
Well, so I looked up customer satisfaction, and there was a CX Trends report there. And in their blog, it gave lots of details about it, but I'm just going to give a couple. Customer satisfaction is a measure of how happy your customers are with your service, right? We know that. They said 60% of companies surveyed gave themselves high marks for service. So you and I are sitting here. How do you think you do in service, Angie and Tanya? Well, we think we're pretty good at it, right? That's what we're going to say.
Right.
Always room for improvement, but we're going to say we've been in this long enough. It's
one of our skills.
It is.
We've developed that over time.
68% of customers said there's room for improvement. So that's more than 50% and almost 70%.
Right.
And 54% reported that customer service feels like an afterthought for most of the businesses they buy from. Most.
Yes.
Most. So 58% are not even considering maybe how that customer service experience should feel to their customer. Merely 18% of buyers are extremely satisfied with the number of communication channels businesses offer them. 18%. But I believe that.
Oh, I believe it too.
I believe it.
Yeah.
Less than 20% say resolution speeds are extremely strong. You and I have both not experienced that recently, or maybe we fit in that percentage. And only 20% report it's easy to interact with businesses. So that is poor.
Yeah.
Really poor.
Yeah.
The source of that was Zendex blog. So
it tells you that we've got a long way to go in customer service.
Absolutely,
And
yes.
really that's why we wanted to hit on this today, because we do feel like we've been successful. Now, we both agree that we're not perfect. We'll never reach
no.
perfection.
No.
That it's, I believe, the consumer today is different than it was 10 years ago,
For
20
sure.
years ago. We've both been in this business for a while. So the expectations change.
Yes.
With technology and,
Yes.
people expect you, that one where you said that they didn't, the channels of communication weren't what they expected.
Right.
You've got to be willing to communicate with the client where they need you.
That's right.
If they're simply a texter, then you must text.
you need to text.
If they just want to do email, then you must email. If they're really old school and don't have any technology and they want you to pick up the phone, you
better
pick up the phone.
Yep.
So we really want to give you some of our tips and tools that we have used over the years in terms of trying to get to perfection in customer satisfaction. And so we're just going to run through some of those. We want you to
Yep.
really take note. First of all, anticipation. Anticipate client needs. Our clients in the real estate world want us to be ready and willing to take on whatever challenges come our way. And they want us to read that before it actually happens, so that they don't even
Absolutely.
know that
And-
it's happened.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. Many times we feel a disruption or we continue to check up on something. We're not getting an answer. We
Right.
start getting that little heebie-jeebie feeling, and you may encounter a problem, but you haven't let your client know yet because you don't know exactly what
Right.
the problem is, and you
Right.
don't know how you're going to solve it. So a lot of times we're already managing the problem before our client ever knows about it.
Right, exactly. Which you just hit on the second one there, is managing disruption and being able to problem solve on the fly, because it's really important.
That's a huge part of our job.
Absolutely.
And I think managing the disruptions, it means that we have to be educated, knowledgeable. We have to practice our expertise all the time.
Absolutely.
And we're in a very changing industry. That the housing market in the last 4 years have been just something that we've never seen before,
Right.
very different, something you and
Right.
I have never experienced in our years of being in the business.
Right.
And so that's something that you and I are constantly re-educating or educating on something new, a new idea.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And back to technology, it's changing our world and everyone's world constantly. So we have to stay on the edge of that.
Exactly.
Clear communication, we've already
Yep.
kind of talked about, but I do want to emphasize listening on that. Clear communication isn't you always talking.
No.
I've always said that realtors probably talk too much.
We do.
We need to practice listening skills
Yes.
and make sure we're listening all along the way, because if you are listening to lenders and your lender, your appraiser, your inspector, and those little heebie-jeebies, like you said, start to pop up, it's because you're listening to what they're telling you and you are anticipating what that might mean.
Exactly.
So-
and every client is so different, and every house is so different. If you're not listening, you're missing a huge section of our jobs.
Yes.
You need to shut your mouth and
Exactly.
listen more.
Exactly.
And along with our communicating, we have to have checklists, Angie.
Yes.
I don't know what I did once upon a time without a checklist, but there was once upon a time I didn't have a checklist.
Yeah.
And I probably learned from missing something that, oh, this would be much easier if I just had a pattern of behavior and a checklist.
Right. Right.
We have to be flexible and the ability to adapt.
Absolutely.
Many companies have to do that because
Oh.
you've got irate customers over various things, right? You're dealing
Right.
with a lease. The next guy might be trying to just buy a car.
Right,
And can't
right.
get somebody to call him back. Who
Right.
knows?
Right. We have to be persistent and have tenacity.
Yes.
We know that just because someone says no, and I'll give the example of a lender, let's say you have a client and you send them, they choose a lender, however they choose their lender, and let's say that lender says no. Well, maybe it's not no completely. Maybe we need to stick with that person and persevere with them and have some tenacity. Maybe it's just not the right fit for them, that particular company.
True.
Maybe we need to recommend someone else. Maybe we need to recommend them to get consumer counseling to
Right.
help a credit issue, whatever that, we have to remain persistent
Yeah.
and persevere through things to help our clients win.
And along with that goes follow-up, right?
Oh.
So if they're turned down for the loan today because their credit score's a little low, they're going to be a buyer in the future. So your following up is instrumental in you still being their choice if maybe they have to wait a year.
Right.
So if you're not
Right.
following up with them and maybe guiding them, okay, well, let's, call this person who is good at credit repair and let's see if we can get your credit score up in the next year. And then we can look at going back at this again. So our follow-up is,
And I think a lot of people drop the ball on this.
Yes.
It's one and done. They've
Yes.
sold the car or sold the house or whatever, and then their follow-up just it falls off.
Yeah.
There is no follow-up.
There's no follow-up.
Because we're giving you these tools and these tips that have worked for us, and I think there's one going above the line of expectation.
Yes.
And really all these things are truly about that.
Yeah.
There is a line of expectation, and we've had Terry Tucker on the show before. In her book, she talks about the line of expectation. And the line of expectation is just, if you are above the line, like every realtor can show a house, can write a contract, can get their people with a lender. That's the clear line of expectation.
right.
To really have long-term referrals, repeat business, people
Yes.
who know your name 6 months after the transaction, no matter if they've walked into your store or bought a house or bought a car, you have to work above that line of expectation. And that builds loyalty, customer loyalty.
Yep.
And
Attracts new customers because
Absolutely.
the loyal customers are going to refer new customers to you. They're going to
Right.
refer their friends and their family.
Right.
And I think, Angie, you and I had talked about how do we perfect this? You don't. You can't perfect this experience. However, I think there are a lot of companies out there and a lot of realtors who have gotten really good at it. And you and I both know that we don't feel perfect in our satisfactory game with our clients probably. But we're always trying to reach that perfection.
Absolutely.
And we're willing to relook at what we're doing every year to make sure that we are going way above that line of expectation.
Right. I think most companies have, no matter what your business is, I think most companies today have some sort of a survey that they send
They do,
out. And
yeah.
at the end of the year, you get your results from that. And we're always in the 98% percentile. And we've never been 100. And I tell my agents, we'll never get to 100.
No.
Because like we've discussed, the expectations are always changing.
That's right.
And you have new people, new agents coming in that have to be trained. And so I would love it. That would be wonderful if we could reach 100, but it's not even really realistic
Right.
in
Yeah.
my mind.
But I think striving for the 98
Yeah,
keeps us on top of our game.
it does. It
And
does.
keeps us getting those referrals. And for these companies that we've mentioned today that we were happy with and that we weren't happy with, I know there's probably a better company in there and maybe an experience that you and I didn't experience.
Right.
But sadly, that's how your repeat customers fall off quickly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. It takes one bad experience. So hopefully this has helped you a little bit.
Yes.
We've given you some tips, and we'll put those in the show notes as well so that you can follow up with that. But I think if you're wondering about whether or not you have good customers, you provide a good customer experience, the best way for you is to ask. If you don't
That's right.
have a survey, get a survey.
That's right.
Or just ask your client,
Yeah.
what could I have done better?
Exactly.
And we have to, that's the only way we grow, is if we ask the question and
That's
get the
right.
feedback that we need.
That's right. So, Angie, moving forward, we're going to try to work on helping companies, people,
Organization.
consumers, organizations work on strategic plans. And we kind of have 4 pillars that we're going to be concentrating on so that we're going to bring our listeners different ideas on something like customer satisfaction and having you stop and think, are my customers satisfied and how can I improve on that?
Yes. So this is just one of the many things that we have planned. We're going to bring you more information. And like I said, like Tanya said, we're working on our strategic plan so that we can roll that out to all of you if you would like for us to come and do a more deep dive on that. So look for that and some other great things that we have coming in 2024.
Yeah. We're excited.
Yes, we are.
So this has been a great session. We
Yeah.
hope you guys have enjoyed it, and we will thank Gershman Mortgage for their nice studio we get to record in, and we will catch you next time.
See ya.
Thank you for listening to the Simply Authentic podcast. Be sure to hit follow so that you can see each episode as it pops up weekly.